El gallito.
The present tense conjugation. So let's take a look and see purpose of the present tense. Okay, we want to be able to use this to be able to speak in the present. Okay, typically what we find is it tells us what's happening right now, to tell people what you do currently on a regular basis. This is why we want to learn the present tense. The first thing we need to know is what are the subject pronouns. Just like in English, Spanish has subject pronouns. Alright, so the first one we have is we start off with, we have this chart. Okay, this chart is important because it's our conjugation chart. We have right here, this is our singular, this is our plural section. Alright, and down in the columns we have first person, second, and third person plural, third person. Alright. In English, these subject pronouns are I, you, he, and she. We also use it. Okay? Boop. Alright, for the plural form of the first person, we go into we have you all, and then we have they. Alright, now in Spanish, we also have subject pronouns, and these are the equivalents. You have to memorize these. So you have I is yo, and then the plural form is nosotros. And then for second person singular, you have tú. Remember your accent, it's very important. And then over here you have vosotros. Now, vosotros is principally used in Spain, not in many of the other countries that speak Spanish. The vosotros form is also what you would consider to be archaic. Okay? It's used in Old Spanish too. Alright, so then down here on the bottom, the third person. Now here it's important. Up here, I'll talk about this later on about the importance of putting in the subject pronouns. And then down here we have he equals él. She is ella. And now there's another form that's here that does not mean it. It means you. It's the second person singular, but it's in a more formal sense. It's usted. It's to show respect. Usted is what you use when you're talking to teachers or other people that are in authority, higher authority than yourself, or just to show some respect for them. Okay, so now they actually splits up into two. One's for masculine, one's for feminine. You have ellos, which can actually go for either one if you have both of them in the mix. So if you have a group of boys and girls, you'd use ellos. But if you wanted to speak just to the girls, you'd say ellas when you're just referring to them. Okay, and then we also have the plural form of usted, which is ustedes. Oops. Ustedes, which means you all. But again, it's a more formal sense of the word. And then usted, of course, means you. Okay? So there are your pronouns. So let's take a look at a verb and what makes up a verb. Okay? So we're going to dissect it. This is a verb. Verbs are actions, things that you do. And so here we have vivir, which means to live. Okay? Just like in English, this to part means that nobody's acting on it. Okay? It's still up in the air. If I said he lives, you'll notice that, I'll put it on here, he lives. You notice that we had to change the live to lives. We made it almost like it's plural. Okay, it's because he is acting on it. Next, boop, 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 boop. I'm gonna erase that. Okay, so vivir, let's dissect it. This verb tells you two different things. This ending right here, the IR, is the to part. Okay, it means to. All right, and then this part, this is what we call the stem or the root of the verb, and it means live. Now, when we take off that IR ending and put a different ending on it, which I'll show you later, it's going to say something else. This ending can tell us two different things. It tells you who did it, whoa, spelled who wrong, who did it, and then when it took place, whether it was in the past, present, or future. Okay? So let's take a quick look. We have two different verbs, or three different kinds of verbs. We have AR verbs, we have ER verbs, it's because of the ending, and then we have IR verbs. Okay? Our AR verbs are going to have their own endings, as well as the ER verbs and the IR verbs. So we're going to start off with AR verbs. All of them are going to start off with O for the yo form. This is why we drew that chart and we did the pronouns also, because the pronouns show which person you're going to put it in. That's why we draw the chart. And so we have the ER verbs, O, they're all the same for all across the board. Now for the tu form, or better yet, let's go with the plural form here. Okay, we have, we have amos, and then the ER verb is hemos, and then it's imos. And so you'll notice that in every single one of these, if the verb ends with an AR, ER, or an IR, for the nosotros form, it's going to end or start off with that letter, I, E, or A. Okay, the mos is what indicates whether this verb tells us that it's the nosotros form. Okay, and that goes for all of them, pretty much. So now let's take that's the first person. Now let's look at the second person. Okay, the tu form. All right, this turns to as. Can you imagine what the ER verb is going to be? It's going to be es. And now IR verb likes to follow the ER verbs in that it's going to be S also. Why? Who knows? It's just the way it is. Okay, now let's look at the vosotros form, the plural form of you, meaning you all. So this is actually going to change. It's going to change to ice, and the accents over the ah. So it's ice, kind of like ice, ice, baby. Okay, and then we have ER verbs, which is going to be just about the same. So we're going to it's going to be ace, okay, kind of like an ace pilot. And then for IR verbs, it's is. All right. Now let's take a look at our third person. Now this is where all of those pronouns that we looked at before are going to have the same endings all across the board. Okay, so AR verbs for singular is a. ER verbs, it's a. And then for IR verbs, it's the same, a. Okay? And then for the third person plural, it's going to be I really messed that up. It's on, n, and then n again. Okay? So you can see, because if we look back at the other subject pronouns, okay, we'll go back one more. Okay, you can see how it's important that we say which pronouns they are, because there's so many of them. There's 3 different types. Okay, all right. Because there's 3 different types of pronouns for these endings, you have to mark and say it was él, ella, or usted. You have to be specific as to who's doing the action. Okay, whereas the ones up here, it's not necessary. But for our purposes, so we know that nosotros goes with amos, yo goes with o, tu goes with as, you're going to be required to write those, just so you can get in the habit of using it. But is it necessary that you always use them? Not necessarily, because it's implied in the ending right there. Okay? Let's take a look at some of the rules for las reglas de los verbos. Verbs have to agree with the subject or subject pronoun. You can't just put whatever ending you think is what you want to do, okay? But so the first thing you have to do is they have to agree, and then you have to memorize the endings or the verb endings of the verb endings. This is pretty much the only rule. That's what you have to do. Since you've taken those notes and you've had an opportunity to go through and practice them and memorize them and stuff, let's just do a few examples here. Okay, so you're going to go through here. Here's the verb in every case, and what you're going to do is you're going to conjugate that verb or change it so that it matches the subject before it. Go ahead and give it a shot. You can also pause this so you can do it on your own, and then we'll walk through it. Okay, let's look at this. Well, first one, it's ellos comer los gatos feos. Okay, so we're going to make this into a complete sentence. That means we have to change this ending to match ellos. And if we go back to our chart, ellos was over here in this little box, and it's also an ER verb. Okay, and so now we know we're going to change ellos. We're going to say ellos comen los gatos feos. Okay, we changed the verb ending. All right, let's check. All right, mis amigos y yo. Now when we have mis amigos y yo, if we were to look at that chart again, because it's over here, the yo form, but it's plural. Okay, if you remember, this is singular and this is plural. So we're just going to go move over here to this section, and that's the nosotros form. So that's the form that we're going to use. Okay, so we're going to say mis amigos y yo, and we're going to conjugate this. It's an IR verb ending, so that would be changed to abrimos. Because I like space, I'm not going to write the whole thing. It would be mis amigos y yo abrimos las puertas de la clase, and then we put a little period at the end because we're showing that that's the end of the sentence. Okay, tú caminar a la escuela en la nieve. Okay, so tú caminar. Now, because it's an AR verb, we're going to use the AR verb endings. So we're going to change that to caminas. Because if we remember our chart, that tú was found right here in the second person. Okay? Now, yo escribir cartas a mi madre. Okay? Now, this is an IR verb, and so we're going to change it accordingly. Yo, basically all the yos are the same. Yo ends with o. Listen to that rhyme. So, it's going to be escribo. So it would say, yo escribo cartas a mi madre. And then we put a little dot at the end, or periods, showing that the sentence has ended. All right, now let's look at él hablar español muy bien. Now, if we were to leave this sentence just like that, it would be like he to speak Spanish very well, which is not what we want to say. We have to change that ending. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll say él habla español muy bien. Okay, because it's found in that last square. If we were to draw that chart, we'd be right there. Usted ver la mujer bonita en la playa. Okay, and so there's the same thing. Because it's so short, it doesn't matter. So we'd say usted ve, because that's what would it be. That's what it would be when we conjugate it into that person. Okay, all right. Enjoy. Now you know how to conjugate verbs.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.